I've only known from what I heard, and that's all I've heard is like this first, just better controls. Christ, you're amazing. You are holy and good. Thank you for being the cause of our creation. Thank you, just out of love, you just shared your governments. You could have decided to rule everything just on your own, but no, you're like, I'm going to partner with humanity and share creation. So give us wisdom with the creation we have around us. When it comes to the computers, the phones, when it comes to actual gardens, when it comes to community around us, please give us wisdom. You're a good God, and we look to you. Amen. But Samson's hair began to grow. Judges chapter 16, verse 22 to 31. Samson's hair began to grow when it had been cut off. Now the rulers of the Philistines assembled for the offering of a great sacrifice to their god Dagon, and for festivities. They said, "Our God gave our enemy Samson into our hand." When the people saw him, they praised their God because, they said, "Our God gave our enemy into our hand, the one who wasted our country and who multiplied our slain." In accordance with what was good in their thinking, they said, "Summon Samson. He must entertain us." So they summoned Samson from the prison house, and he entertained them. They stood in between the pillars, and Samson said to the boy who was holding him by the hand, "Let go of me and let me feel the pillars that the house depends on, so I can lean on them." The house was full of men and women. All the rulers of the Philistines were there, and on the roof were some 3,000 men and women watching Samson entertain. Samson called to Yahweh, "My Lord Yahweh, will you be mindful of me? Will you give me strength as once, God, so that I may get redress from the Philistines? One redress for my 2 eyes?" Samson grasped the 2 middle pillars that the house depended on and leaned on them, one with his right hand and one with his left. Samson said, "I myself can die with the Philistines," and pushed with all his might. The house fell on the rulers and all the people in it. The people whom he caused to die when he died were more. The people whom he caused to die when he died were more than he caused to die when he lived. His brothers and all his father's household came down, lifted him, and took him up and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the tomb of his father Moniah. He had led Israel for 20 years. So remember, they plucked out his eyes. I would stay faithful, and now I would do it. Well, he was like, yeah, he was like God's mighty hand against the Philistines. But when it comes to morality, he's not a very moral person. Like when it comes to righteous living, just Yahweh used him in his, and so they're bringing him to their temple, worshiping their god Dagon, and going. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The first time I went to Israel, I took part in an exciting archaeological dig. Just next to a tennis club in the big modern city of Tel Aviv on the Mediterranean, where people started playing at 6 a.m. because it'll be too hot to play by lunchtime, is another Tel Qasel, like the Tel Jericho, but on a much smaller scale. The Tel is an artificial hill accidentally constructed out of the remains of a succession of cities built one on top of another. The name Tel Aviv, Hill of Spring, thus suggests a combination of the old and the new. As with Jericho, we sought to discover the history of the city by digging down, with a trowel, not an earth mover, through the layers of the tell as through the layers of a cake, mapping carefully where we found anything but mud. We started doing this too at 6 a.m. because it would be too hot to dig by lunchtime. Tel Aviv is the area originally allocated to the clan called Dan. That is the name of the local bus company. In Samson's day, it was therefore part of the area occupied by the Philistines, and Tel Quasel was a Philistine city. One of the great excitements of the year I dug there was the discovery of its sanctuary. It was not a large or impressive building, but an exciting feature of it was the discovery that its roof was supported by two central pillars. The pillars themselves would be wooden and would have rotten, but we actually found were their stone bases. A big guy could stand and brace himself against them. If he were able to bring them down, it would bring the temple down. I could stand in the middle of the sanctuary and imagine the climax of the Samson story. Reading the exotic, larger-than-life, daredevil story about Samson makes you wonder whether they really happened. I don't think there is any way to decide whether they did. On one hand, I assume God would have no trouble making it possible for Samson to undertake these exploits. On the other, they were told more like Wild West stories than like sober history. And I know God likes fictional stories as well as factual ones. My working assumption is this regard applies to most Old Testament stories. On one hand, these stories read as though they are indeed meant to entertain as well as instruct. They look larger than life. On the other hand, when people tell stories like them, I think it's more likely that they start from some event that really happened and from someone who really did some extraordinary things than they are simply pieces of fiction. They are more like stories about Robin Hood or Calamity Jane than like historical studies of Abraham Lincoln or Queen Victoria. That is, they are not simply factual history. They are also more like stories about Robin Hood or Calamity Jane than stories about Rainbow or Lois Lane. That is, they are not simply fiction. Staying in the Philistine sanctuary at Tel Quasel encouraged me in that assessment. Here was just the kind of architectural device that would have made it possible for someone like Samson to bring the house down. Is this the origin of the phrase? It's a distinctively Philistine way of constructing a building. It's not the way Israelites built sanctuaries. It provides circumstantial evidence that the story reflects on actual events. Yet the size of the sanctuary is nothing like the size you will need to get the whole population of Gaza inside or on the roof, which was surely collapsed long before Samson tried to bring it down. So I imagine that behind the stories is a guy who indeed did some extraordinary things and did get into messes and did take on the Philistines, and a mother and some women who were the victims of the patriarchal ways of their culture. But there's no way to get to the real facts behind the story. That is okay, because what their authors apparently wanted us to have were the stories with their entertainment value and their human interest value, and they were what God was happy for us to have as part of the Bible, what the Jewish community who let the Bible accumulate took on, and what the Christian church took on in reaffirming the Jewish community's decision. The story's excitement and their sadness invite a reflection on the way men and women can betray their vocations and on the way women and men can be victims of cultural expectations and assumptions. They ask us to look for the way we, in our very different contexts, might suffer from the same forces. Samson's hair began to grow again. In itself, that will mean nothing, but the story knows that there is a link between the physical and the spiritual, and it knows that Samson's hair growing could be read as a sign that his vow as a dedicated person is not done. This doesn't even imply that Samson has got his act together spiritually. We know already that God's using Samson doesn't depend on his having done so. Maybe more significant is the way the Philistines gave credit for delivering Samson into the power to their top god, Dagon, their equivalent to the master, Baal. Yahweh sometimes has a hard time being tolerant when sidelined like that, and has a hard time just looking on when a servant like Samson is treated the way he is. The fact that Samson deserves it is neither here nor there. He is still Yahweh's servant, and Yahweh is humiliated through his servant's humiliation. Maybe Samson actually has moved on an inch or two. In Dagon's sanctuary, Samson is praying Yahweh. You might think it's not much of a prayer, but when God isn't always too concerned about how proper our prayers are. Judges doesn't even actually say that God answered his prayers. You could wonder if he brought the sanctuary down by his own strength, but I would have thought that the story's comment on how many Philistines he disposed of at the cost of his own life implies that he was at this last moment fulfilling his vocation to to deliver Israel from the Philistines. His story comes to a peaceful end, the kind of peaceful end that anyone in the Old Testament looks for. His family collect his body and take him back home, back to Israel territory, back to his own town, back to where the family tomb is, back to join his father and the rest of his family there to rest in peace. He appears once more in Scripture in the list of heroes of faith in Hebrews 11, where the writer expresses regret at not having time to tell of people such as David and Samuel and Samson, not to say Gideon, Barak, and Jephthah. That always excites me because if there is room for Samson in the New Testament list of heroes of faith, there is surely room for me. So as we see, like, Samson doesn't really have his act together. But that gives us hope because we know that we have a hard time getting our act together. Yeah. And yet, it's all about pointing our face towards Yahweh. All right, friend. We can start. Mm-hmm. Hmm. Hmm. The heck? If I can get lucky. Oh. Nope, wasn't lucky. Maybe down below? I'm better if I would have done it down below. Yep. Should have brought it, but too late now. Hmm. Oh my gosh. Hmm. You know I'm not gonna know. So you know I'm not gonna know. Come on, come on, come on. What a terrible light combo. Bees and darkness in the jungle. Oh, that's gonna hurt. Oh, I took a solid, I think, 2 HP. Nope. That works. Oh my gosh. Wrong button. Oh, what a series of mistakes. gosh, I don't mean. That's true. I probably could have kept on. Oh my Lanta. Oh, what's up? We did it at 4 o'clock, so you guys are good. Are you when are you done with school, Jason? Mm-hmm.
We have for everybody, pretty much
Mm-hmm.
school Monday, Tuesday, and then winter break starts.
I see. Okay.
So
Oh. I was sick on the weekend, recovering today. How are you? I'll
because
take it how you describe it. Is that the five? It's the Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so everybody was walking up to me and they were like, "Oh my God, it's Freddy Fazbear!" You can probably see the song. And so it was so annoying. Today I did it with my shirt. Baby all day. What are
Maybe
they gonna base it on?
maybe the nylon cat. Even though it's a gray cat.
Exactly, but they don't know what that is. And it's like a black cat with a white belly. So it's like, there ain't nothing we can make fun of for it.
You probably, the attention must be nice though.
But
As you're wearing clothes that bring you attention, you may say it's annoying to you, but the attention is attention.
oh, it's meant. Not only that, they were also saying baby shark because I am literally one of the shortest people in most of the classes I have.
Hmm.
It's like one other person who I have like every class.
Hmm. Then it won't be a scam, Char. I mean, those systems, people always find workarounds. Oh gosh, that's my death. Oh, yep. I mean, they pull the copyright out of One Piece. That's what you mean, right, Char? So the both blocks fruit and GPO. What he's saying they're both copyright out of One Piece. No, so he's saying if there's going to be something in GPO, it's most likely going to be in blocks fruit because they're both taken from the same source. No, he was having a hard time. Was having a hard time with his words. He's saying that most likely, if it's on one or the other, it'll be on one or the other. Hello, Spectre. Did I get him? I did. Nice. I mean, it makes sense if you're hitting those big numbers. I'll be out of there too.
What I do to you? Bro!
I mean, there's a lot of people who speak Spanish are on those servers. That's just all that means. Oh my god. That's funny. Does he run? Nope, he doesn't. Huh. What's up? She's in here. I'm such a silly goose. Alright, let's go. Oh, yes. Oh my god. Oh my god. No, 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 no. Nope. Ooh. What? I know. About time. Heck. Oh. I don't know why the game wasn't doing what I was commanding, but it's a good time because we gotta go.